So I'm Dan Russo. I'm happy to be here at the CMT Symposium and really excited to be interviewing Tom O'Halloran and Vernon Bice. I've known Tom and Vernon for a little while, so I jumped at the chance to kind of take part in this interview. So I think it would be best maybe to kind of start with your backgrounds, kind of, we have your names obviously, but where you work and what you do.
I'm the lead portfolio manager at Lord Abbett for three of the growth strategies, large cap growth, small cap growth, and micro cap growth. And Vern to my right.
I'm also I'm a co-PM of the three strategies and also the technical analyst for the team.
Perfect. And I mean, one of the things that's important, to, obviously, from a career standpoint, is mentors. Can you kind of maybe talk a little bit about how you got into this business and who your mentors were?
I actually didn't have a mentor, so I adopted one from afar, and that was William O'Neill. When I left law, which I had started out in as my original career, to move to investing, I read about great investors to try to develop a style and a process. It was the same thing I had done reading about great trial lawyers, trying to see what about them I might be able to adopt as part of a process for trying cases. So this was in the mid-1990s, early 1990s, reading about great investors. I stumbled upon an article about a guy named Stanley Druckenmiller, and I said, oh my gosh, he was the manager of the game room where I used to drown my loneliness at Bowdoin College, shooting pool. And I read about his investing process, and I was fascinated to learn that he had been taught technical analysis by his first boss at Pittsburgh National Bank, and later by Jack Dreyfus at Dreyfus and Company. And I said to myself, I thought Stanley was brilliant. If he uses technical analysis, I will too. And the next day, I read my first article, picked up my first copy of Investor's Business Daily. And I've read that for the past 30 years, 95% of the issues. I've also benefited greatly from some of the tremendous sell-side analysts. The first one I met was Luis Yamada, then Ralph Alcampora, and then Jeff DeGraff. And today we have Craig Johnson and a multitude of other great analysts that serve as very helpful mentors in trying to use technicals better.
Yeah, and like Tom, I too got my start with William O'Neill. I consider him the father of growth investing, and the first book that I read on investing was How to Make Money in Stocks. But it was really my stepfather who was an avid reader of Investor's Business Daily and got me interested in charts 30 years ago.
That's great. It's so funny that you both mentioned O'Neill, because when I was in college, I was in the bookstore and with my parents' credit card buying textbooks, and I happened to come across the Market Wizards book by Jack Schwager, and Bill O'Neill was one of the prominent interviews in there, along with one of his proteges, David Ryan. And those two interviews were actually two that jumped out at me a lot, along with the one of Paul Tudor Jones. So I guess William O'Neill has been an influence for me as well. And Tom, you mentioned the sell side. Actually, when I was on the sell side, the first marketing meeting that I ever did in my life was actually in the Lord Abbett office with Tom and Vernon. So thank you for that. Kind of just as we look at the CMT program, what's kind of the greatest lesson that you've taken away from it?
I don't have my CMT. I would like to someday. I think I'm a little bit wary of doing it, because when I took the CFA, I caught pneumonia twice on top of the busy schedule that I still have today. But fortunately, Vern has taken it, and we've learned a tremendous amount from him and improved our process as a result of that. So I'll let him talk about his experience.
And I think the curriculum today, you could see how things have been changing for the curriculum, moving towards the scientific method, doing more objective testing and that sort of thing. So at the heart of our process has always been momentum and relative strength. But I think the curriculum, in particular, the book by David Aronson, Evidence-Based Technical Analysis, was pretty crucial in helping us try to move our process more towards the objective field.
Yeah, the Aronson book was kind of the book that did it for me. I remember when I first started coming to this event, there was a lot of drawing lines on charts and patterns, and reading that book kind of changed my view to more of an evidence-based approach. So, obviously you have a lot in common. And now you guys are going to be the kind of the closing presentation today. What should we expect from you on stage there?
Well, we'll talk about how we use technical analysis in our process. Our process is a fundamental research-driven process designed to find great growth companies, and we use technical analysis to try to harness their return potential, but also to try to avoid the negative momentum that they can create at times. So that's what will be the topic, and we look forward to it.
I don't know how much I have to add on that one, but yeah, if anything comes up as far as questions or concerns about our process technically, I'd be happy to answer them.
And then just in terms of, like, Tom, you mentioned, fundamentals and then kind of use technicals on top of that to enhance the process. Do you use quantitative research at all? And if so, kind of what's the split? How much fundamental, technical, quantitative?
Well, we say that our process is 2/3 fundamental and 1/3 technical. But for both, we use quantitative methods to improve our fundamental analysis and our technical analysis.
And as far as the technicals are concerned, I think we just look at writing our winners as long as we can and cutting our losers, and that is a big part of the process, along with relative strength. So some of the quant that we've used is just categorizing whether it be absolute or relative momentum, and using that quant tool to help us maybe be more objective.
Perfect. So I guess you would agree then that using technical analysis gives you an edge against your peers, and when you're investing. Is there any way to quantify what that edge is?
I don't think there's a way to quantify it, but it's very meaningful. The market, a stock is very different than a company, and it's very important. Technical analysis gives you the edge of knowing when the two are going to diverge. Technical analysis enables you to take advantage of positive momentum to generate returns, and it also enables you to be aware of negative momentum that can cause a lot of damage and help you control risk. I think Vern and I have talked a great deal about the fact that marrying the two is what gives us the edge.
Yeah, actually, I couldn't agree more. That's kind of how I look at the world as well. So a big part of the CMT Association is meeting people and networking and developing that network to kind of help your career. Any career advice that you would give to somebody who's starting out in the business?
I think it's just so critical that you have a style and a process of investing that you are comfortable with and you believe in. Vern and I both are very excited about growth companies, and we think we're living in a world where there's huge return potential, but we also realize that technical analysis is critical to identify when a good growth company is going to become a bad stock. So I think it's really critical that you have a process and a style that you feel comfortable with, and to continually, as Vern has just done for us through obtaining his CMT degree, continually strive to make that process better and better. And that's the advice I'd give.
And then I guess you both mentioned the book by O'Neill, one that I've read as well as the Aronson books. Any other kind of mandatory reading for somebody who's either starting out in the business or has been in the business 20 years?
Well, I think the How to Make Money in Stocks is my favorite book. Peter Lynch wrote some great books on growth investing. The Jack Schlager articles on great investors are wonderful. And Investors Business Daily, which is now a weekly, is something I run for every Saturday morning. I would recommend that to everybody.
Yeah, and it's a lot of the same books. I think it's important to get inspiration. And you mentioned the Schwager books, and I remember how inspired I was reading some of these.
They're great.
They're amazing. And another thing it taught was how many ways there are to make money. So going back to Tom's point on process, it is important that you develop your own process and get inspiration from these books. I'd probably add other books like Dual Momentum Investing, which gives you an idea of how to combine absolute and relative to the list. But anything that gets you inspired and down the path of creating your own process is recommended.
Excellent. Well, listen, thank you both for attending. Definitely looking forward to your presentation in a little while, and we're just glad you can be here.
Thank you.
Thank you.